Welcome back, Mastercrafted Gaming fans. Kyle here to bring you some more Kings of War 3rd Edition content. And something I've seen quite a lot lately, especially from new players, is there is a little bit of confusion on how to build a list. So how unlocks work and how irregular units work within that. So I think it's worthwhile to take some time to sit down and take a look at it and sort of clear up what the book has laid out and make things visually a lot easier to grasp for you.
To start off, I want to say that this explanation is going to be very base level. If you have an understanding of how these units work, you might either want to skip ahead or just skip this video altogether, because this is going to be for new players that really need a broken down explanation of what's happening when they're building a list and how they're putting it together. In the main rulebook on page 10, there is a section on units, and it's really important that you understand how this works before you get into the next step of army construction. Why that matters is because it explains each of the unit types, and these explanations are based on the idea that units are done by individual models put together in different organizations on a base that turn it into that unit. So something like infantry and heavy infantry both fall under one category. The difference being that an infantry model is a 20mm by 20mm square base, and a heavy infantry model is a 25 by 25. That's the only difference between their designation. But they both fall under the same category of all of these criteria. So a troop is consisting of 10 models arranged 5 wide, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then a second row of 5 in the second rank. Regiments are going to be 20 models arranged 5 wide and then 4 ranks. Hordes are 40, and then 4, and then 60 models arranged in 10 and then by 6. So this tells you how the unit is supposed to be composed when you put the base down on the board. In Kings of War, that can be kind of confusing because something called multi-basing is a really popular method of putting your army together. That's the diorama style basing. And that means that you don't exactly have to follow the criteria for putting, the specific amount of models on the base at one time. You can use preferred model count or just fill the base up to make it look as decorative and full as possible, and that's a legal unit. But when understanding the base size, it's important that you just do the basic math of, if I have 20mm and there are 5 models across, that's 20 times 5 to make 100, and then 2 deep to make 40. So your troop of infantry is going to be 100 by 40, and then that's the base. This section goes on in a very similar manner for everything else in the game, tells you what base size it's supposed to be, and once you understand this concept that units are made up of either single models or multiple models in a specific arrangement that designates whether it's a troop, regiment, horde, or legion, that will really clear things up for you. So if you can understand this basic level, that's the first step. Next step is then understanding how these unlock each other when you're building a list. The next section then that becomes important is on page 40, and it's under Army Selection. And it takes those same unit types that I was just talking about with troops, regiments, hordes, and legions. And it essentially breaks it down to tell you exactly how you can work this. Now, easiest explanation that I can give is that you've got to take the bigger units, such as regiments, hordes, and legions, before you can unlock the smaller units of troops, monsters, war engines, and heroes. Each of these unit types, regiments, hordes, legions, can unlock a very specific set based on how you take it. And different types of regiments, so heavy infantry regiments, cavalry regiments, unlock differently than large infantry regiments. So that's an important designation as well. But that's made clear on the next page down here. So starting off, we'll take a look at infantry, heavy infantry, and cavalry regiments. And what's important is that you understand that this is an infantry regiment, a heavy infantry regiment, and a cavalry regiment. So specifically, whatever their unit composition is, however it comes, as long as it's one of these 3 unit types in a regiment, this is specifically what they unlock on the right side of the section here. So visually, what does that mean? I'll hop over to UB and give you an idea. This is a regiment of Huscarls, and they are arranged 5 by 4 to make up the regiment, and they are heavy infantry, so they've got 25mm bases. And this unit will unlock a total of 2 troops, which I took the exact same types of troops just to make that clear. In the simplest way possible, this could unlock any kind of troops in the unit, but And the base explanation: regiment, 2 troops unlocked, and then a hero, a monster, or a war engine. So this is a slot where that final thing, you get the 2 troops no matter what, but the hero, monster, or war engine is an optional thing. So you have to pick one of the 3 that you'd want to put in your list per regiment of infantry, heavy infantry, or cavalry. Next up comes the horde options. I'm choosing to use this example with a horde of human clansmen. They are regular infantry, which is 20 by 20, organized in a horde of 10 across and 4 deep to make 40 in the unit. And this then unlocks everything below. So it allows you to take 4 troops, which I just took 4 of the exact same options here. And then it gives you the option of 1 hero, 1 war engine, and 1 monster. So this means that with this 1 unit up at the top here, you've now got the ability to take 4 troops, a war engine, and a monster. Now, this is where I'll bring up irregular units. When you're list building and you want to include an irregular unit, it doesn't ever unlock under any circumstances, no matter what the unit type is. So if it's a horde and it's a regular, which is that little tiny asterisk that's next to it, it doesn't unlock anything regardless. That's one of the conditions of a regular. And it always counts as a troop as far as unlocks go. So, for example, in Northern Alliance, the Snow Foxes are a unit that is irregular. So they're a swarm, and the only unit type that they come in is a regiment. And that means that there are 3 of them. It's 40 millimeter bases, and there are 3 across. But because they're irregular, even though they're a regiment, they will always count as a troop as far as unlocking goes. So in this instance, this is still a completely legal build. I've got my horde, and it unlocks 4 troops worth, and then a hero, monster, and war engine. So this will allow me to take 2 regiments of Snow Foxes, which are irregular, and then 2 troops of Huskarls, which are totally normal troops. So now we're going to move on to the large infantry and large cavalry hordes. This is the next unlock type. So you'll notice that I said hordes. Regiments of large infantry and large cavalry do not unlock. So that means a regiment of these Frostfang cavalry, or a regiment of your most commonly concerned about unit type would be ogres, like ogre warriors or something like that, trolls, zombie trolls, those sort of things. They do not unlock in regiments. So you have to take them in the full horde in order to provide any unlocking. And what they unlock is different from the infantry hordes. So both the large infantry and large cavalry hordes, they provide unlocks for 2 troops or 2 irregular units, and up to 2 of the following in any combination. So they could have 2 heroes, or a hero and a monster, or 2 monsters, or 2 war engines, any combination of that monster, hero, war engine, titan, whatever type of unit. So it's entirely up to you on what you'd want to put here. These units are kind of always interchangeable, but in this case, if you want an inspiring hero and a war engine, or since it's 3rd edition, you want 2 war engines, they can all go together and essentially come in one purchase from that, depending on the type, does not matter. They can be the same thing or otherwise, but it's any combination of those 2 types of units. Last but not least is the large infantry, large cavalry legion. Now, the Frostfang cavalry do not come in a legion, but just for visual representation, this is what that looks like. You have essentially 6 units by 2 deep, and it unlocks very similar to the infantry horde or legion in the sense that you get now 4 troops or 4 irregular units unlocked in that slot, and then the same as the horde option with the large infantry, large cavalry, where you get 2 in any combination. So if you want 2 heroes, 2 war engines, or any way, shape, or form, monsters, etc., you can do that as long as there are 2 that are unlocked by this 1 unit. Now that we've got the visuals down, we'll give you an idea of what that looks like. So a great tool is going to be the Mantic Easy Army Builder, so mantic.easyarmy.com. Once you sign in, you can essentially start building a list, and the different unit types are broken down, same as we discussed here before. If I try to add a troop right off the bat, we know now that that is not something that can be added instantly. So it will give me a warning and say, too many troops for the main army. It's saying that because I need at least a regiment or a horde first. Once I add a regiment, we know in our example, I can then have 2 troops. Doesn't matter what type of troops they are, but you can add 2 troops. If I go to add that 3rd, though, it'll give me an error and say 2 troops again, or too many troops again. So same situation. We delete those first, and I add in a horde. it will give me the option for 2 troops, 3 troops, and 4 troops. But if I go for that 5th, too many. It's the same instance now with the monsters, heroes, titans, etc. So if I need a phoenix, I can now add it at this point. If I go and try to add a hero that is an infantry hero, I can add that. Doesn't matter what type of hero, as long as it's a hero slot. I can do that because this is a horde. If I take these guys out and I replace this with a regiment and delete the other troop so it makes it legal, and then the horde, I have the phoenix, which is my one monster hero or war engine. But if I go down here back to the paladin chaplain and try to add it, it will say, no, you cannot do that because you have too many heroes, monsters, war machines, or titans in the count. Same explanation goes with the irregular units like I talked about. We have an irregular unit because it has this asterisk there. And if you go to add the regiment, it'll say, hey, can't do that, too many troops in the main army, even though I clicked on that regiment button. It says that because the regiments of anything that's irregular, the hordes of anything that's irregular, always counts as a troop regardless of what size it's in. So when you go to do it, it says too many troops. So you need to have at least a regiment, horde, or legion to unlock them first. So Easy Army is great because it gives you all the options right there at the start. You don't have to have the confusion. If you know that you're going to start to build a list, you can start out that way. What is nice about Easy Army, as I've highlighted in my other videos, is that when you go into the options here, if you set the validation to passive, and for whatever reason, I have to have 5 troops of foot guard, you can add these right off the bat, even though it says too many troops from the main army. So you still get the error message, but it still allows you to add them. This is just a flex option in Easy Army, but it's still going to say, hey, you're not technically a legal list right now.
So hopefully that clears things up just a little bit more. Sometimes getting that sort of visual explanation is really the key to understanding what's going on. You can also use tools like Easy Army to sort of piece it all together. It's not going to let you do something unless you set it to that passive list building requirement when you start your list process. So it's a really good way to understand if you're doing it right in the first place. During this time of everyone being locked down in the middle of the worldwide pandemic, I'd like to do a lot of video content. So if there's certain things that you guys are looking for, please let me know. I would love to answer any questions or go over things, whether you're a new player or an experienced one. One main idea that I have is that I would love to sort of go over some of the more intricate maneuvers that you can do in Kings of War, or sort of talk about different scenarios that can make you a better player in different situations. So I'll go over those things and anything else that you can possibly think of. So if you've got any requests, please let me know in the comments below and we'll keep this rolling. Thanks, guys.
And Nick, get off the shitter, man. You're gonna get hemorrhoids. Take care of yourself.